Good morning students. Today we are going to start the respiratory system and we'll discuss basically about the human respiratory system and the organs responsible for respiration. Here we'll study about the complete process and not the chemical changes on the physiological process, how the process takes place inside the body, what are the organs involved in the process or the passage of respiration. So as you all know that respiration is the breakdown of food in the presence of oxygen, and in the presence of oxygen, and from where do we get the oxygen is by breathing. So breathing is the phenomena. Breathing is a part of respiration, but respiration is not breathing. So breathing and respiration, if it is asked that breathing is similar to respiration, no, breathing is only inhaling and exhaling, that taking in oxygen and releasing out carbon dioxide. But respiration is a process which involves chemical reactions in which breakdown of food takes place from by the oxygen taken in during breathing process. So here let's start with the respiratory organs. In the respiratory organ, first this is about the nasal passage. Nasal passage. Air from the nostrils enter into the nasal passage. This is oral cavity or oral passage. This leads to a section which is called pharynx. Pharynx. After this is the trachea. Trachea is a passage in which air from the nasal passage and oral cavity enters, and this is a common passage after the pharynx. This trachea is covered by a C-shaped cartilaginous ring. C-shaped cartilaginous ring, trachea. Now this trachea gets divided into two sections, into the right and the left lungs. This is termed as bronchi. Now this bronchi get further divided into segments, and that is bronchiole, which these bronchioles end up into a balloon shaped structure, or the structure is somehow like this. These are termed as alveoli, and these are the alveolar sacs. In each lungs, in the right and the left lung, the division are same. The trachea gets distributed into two segments, and that is bronchiole. Bronchiole further divides, bronchi further gets divided into bronchiole, and these bronchioles end up into minute balloon-like structures, that is very thin membranous structure. These thin membranous structures are termed as alveoli. Now here the air that we breathe in, it enters from from the nasal passage. It enters from the nasal passage into the pharynx. After pharynx, it enters into the trachea. After trachea, it enters into bronchi. Then into the bronchioles. And then into the alveolar sac. During this process, when we breathe in, that is during the process of inspiration, when we do this, when we inhale, the rib, this is the diaphragm. On the diaphragm, the lungs are placed. So when we breathe in, just you can do this also, breathe in So when we breathe in, the diaphragm, it lowers down, but the lungs, it moves up. Lungs or the ribs move up, upward and outward. So during inhalation, the ribs move upward and outward, and the diaphragm moves down. So this complete process, ribs upward and outward, diaphragm lowers. So this upward and outward movement of ribs and lowering of diaphragm result in creating a cavity, or results in increase in the chest cavity. So this increase in, since the air out in the outer environment is more in concentration, so it rushes in when we breathe. Then it rushes in from outer environment into the air space or air passage through nose or nostril to the nasal passage, then to the pharynx, then to the bronchi, bronchiole and lungs. So this, once it gets filled up, then there is a diffusion of gases. Diffusion of which gases? Diffusion of gases that we are taking in, and the diffusion of gases which is brought about by the blood capillaries from different parts of our body to the blood poured into heart, and then from heart to the lungs. So this the impure blood, or the blood which is less having less concentration of oxygen and more concentration of carbon dioxide, so we use the term deoxygenated blood for it. So this deoxygenated blood gets diffused with the oxygen that we are taking in. Now what happens, that after breathing in, the cavity gets filled up, and the process of diffusion takes place. Then what we do? Then there is exhalation. In the process of exhalation, the ribs, it moves downwards and inwards. This is during inhalation. But during exhalation, ribs move downward and inwards. Diaphragm comes to its original position. This results in decrease in the chest cavity, and this decrease in the chest cavity pushes the air out of the respiratory passage. So pushing out of the air from respiratory passage into the outer environment is termed as exhalation. It involves, this complete process involves movement of diaphragm, movement of ribs, and the complete diffusion of gases also. As we have discussed about the respiratory passage, that how the air enters and what is the complete steps which is involved in the during the process of inhalation and exhalation. What is the normal breathing rate of an adult? Normal breathing rate of an adult is 12 to 18 breaths per minute. So this is for adult. The breathing rate of an infant is 60 breaths per minute. After a complete inhalation and exhalation process, there is a short break or pause that is termed as respiratory pause, and this is for a very short period, and respiratory after every cycle there is a respiratory pause. So I'm repeating how the process takes place, and after that I'll explain you the diffusion process in the alveolar sac. So here students just listen that in the air from the outer environment rushes in because the air outside is in more concentration as compared to the air inside the body. So when we breathe in, air enters through the nasal passage into the trachea. The trachea is covered with C-shaped cartilaginous ring, and the role of this C-shaped cartilaginous ring is that it prevents the bursting of the tracheal membrane. Since the tracheal membrane is very thin, and if the air rushes in with a high pressure, then there may be chances of bursting of the, if that area is not defined, not well defined, or not well enclosed in a particular shape, then there may be chances that it would bulge out. Suppose the air enters and the tracheal membrane, it bulges out like this. Then since it is very thin, the diffusion takes place, so the membrane is very thin, and there may be chances of bursting of this membrane. So the cartilaginous ring provides a support. Cartilaginous ring provides a support, as well as it restricts the path or restricts the area for infiltration of the respiratory and that lining or the membrane. So that it would not get inflated to a large extent. So it also limits the area for expansion. This is the role of protection of the membrane, tracheal membrane, and also limiting the area for expansion. Now from this, it enters into the bronchi, then to the bronchiole, and then it enters into the balloon-shaped structure, which is alveolar sac. During this complete process, during the process of inhalation, when we breathe in, ribs, it moves upward and outward, diaphragm moves downward. So this increases the chest cavity, and increase in the chest cavity results in rushing up of air from outer environment into the respiratory passage. During exhalation, what happens that after diffusion or after exchange of gases, the air is now rich in carbon dioxide as compared to the air which we breathe in, which was having more concentration of oxygen. So that after diffusion, that CO2 concentrated air, it rushes out. How it rushes out? Because the ribs now moves inward and downward, in and downward, and the diaphragm, it moves up to its original position. So this complete results in reduction or reducing the chest cavity. Reduction in the chest cavity results in expelling out of the air from the respiratory passage to the outer environment. So this is the complete process of inhalation and exhalation. Now the topic is about exchange or diffusion in the alveolar sac. First of all, I will explain you on the board, and with the help of a balloon, I will explain how the process of diffusion takes place. Now in the alveolar sac, the membrane is very thin lined membrane, and it is wrapped around or covered with blood capillaries. Now these blood capillaries, it runs around the alveolar sac. Now the blood, first of all, just have a brief idea about from where the blood comes. Blood from all parts of the body comes to heart. From the heart it is sent to the lungs for oxygenation, and then from lungs to heart and then to all parts of the body. This is the complete cycle by which blood is circulated in the body after getting oxygenated, after removing the carbon dioxide, or making the deoxygenated blood pure by oxygenation process. So this blood, all parts of the body, this is deoxygenated blood. Deoxygenated blood from all parts of the body enters to heart. Heart is the pumping organ. It pumps the deoxygenated blood through pulmonary artery into the lungs, then from lungs to the heart, and then after oxygenation it is again sent to the heart. From heart it is sent to all parts of the body. That is, oxygenated blood is sent to all parts of the body. Now this oxygenation process, since this blood is deoxygenated, so it contains more CO2. But the air from this nasal passage, and this, it is rich in oxygen. This air is rich in oxygen. So after coming in contact with this, there in gases there is always diffusion process from higher concentration to lower concentration. So CO2 is is in a higher concentration inside the capillary, so it moves out, while O2 is high in concentration in the passage, so it moves into the blood capillaries, and by this, after getting diffused, the blood with more oxygen, it moves out, and then it is collected to the collected and poured into the heart. So this is a complete process, and just let me show you with the help of a balloon. Now in this, as you can see, this is this looks like an alveolar sac, or this is suppose this is an alveolar sac. Around this, these blood capillaries are wrapped around, and this blood capillary contains more carbon dioxide, while inside this sac is more oxygen. So oxygen from this sac diffuses into this capillary, and carbon dioxide from this capillary diffuses into the alveolar sac. I am repeating, if suppose this is an alveolar sac and the blood capillaries are wrapped around it like this, blood capillary contain carbon dioxide rich blood, while inside the sac there is more oxygen. So oxygen from the sac diffuses into the capillary, and carbon dioxide from the capillary diffuses into the sac. So this is the process of diffusion that takes place during the process of respiration. Hope students, you have understood the complete phenomena. Thank you all of you. Have a good day.